energy in. Can you feel that energy in this room?
Yeah.
I can feel the energy in this room. It is alive with spirit. And spirit is going to be expressing this morning, expressing through all of us, but verbally and energetically through Dale Allen Hoffman, who is going to be giving us the message today. And he brings words from Yeshua to us. And whatever language he speaks is the perfect language that comes through him. And we give thanks for having him here this morning and his whole lovely, beautiful family. I've never seen so many people get out of a car this morning. So amazing. I hear that Dale wasn't, they left one kid in the car. They didn't even know. What a beautiful family. I thought, that's joy.
Yes.
Right there. That's joy. That's family. That's joy. And so Dale is going to be bringing that joy to us this day if we are not in that energy of joy itself. I just want to read the one quote because I love it. This is from John Waterhouse, who's the president of Centers for Spiritual Living, Religious Science. And he said about Dale, Dale is a spiritual rock star.
Nice.
Okay? Let me see what else here. He is heir apparent of interpreting the ancient Aramaic teachings of Jesus for modern listeners and the perfect fit for any New Thought community. So Joyful Gathering Spiritual Community welcomes and is very honored to have Dale Allen Hoffman here with us.
Aha, my light went out. I walked too fast.
Your light didn't go out.
I must be more conscious. Margaret asked me about a bio. What should she say? I said, say Dale's here. I just spent the last few minutes sitting, being very... I realize I've got my microphone going to my recorder, but it's not going over there. But I spent the last few minutes sitting in silence, being very just open and still, trying to bring myself down from the fact that I've already had 4 shots of espresso this morning. So, well, the peculiar thing about New Jersey is I put into my GPS that I'm looking for a Starbucks, and I left from Princeton, which is a little over an hour away, the part that I was in, and every single Starbucks was a left turn. But I'm in New Jersey. I couldn't make a left turn. Nobody can make a left turn in New Jersey. Everything is this big circle around going back a quarter of a mile. So by the time I found a Starbucks, I kind of overcompensated. And then when I got here, I'm like, okay, now you got to find the way to sort of bring it back down. So we're actually going to begin with toning. This might help bring it back down a little. But if I go a little far out on a limb, you can forgive me and blame it on some company from Seattle, Washington. So, just be open. Right now, I'm going to ask you to take 3 deep breaths in through your nose like this. Hold it within your temple for just a few moments, and then breathe out through your mouth. What we're going to do is we're going to begin by toning, which is an ancient indigenous practice that goes so far back. We don't know where it started from, where it came from. It was in the more experiential Gnostic legs of early Christianity, and it's still there today. What it is you take a word that's sacred, although it doesn't even necessarily have to be a sacred word. It can almost be any sound, but especially sounds or words that are rich in vowels, open tones, in other words. And you elongate that, and it's not a singing so much as it's an expression from within. So this isn't about performance. It's not about a perfect voice. You can let go of that. I always say it's not about sounding like the Andrews Sisters or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or Pentatonics, I believe, is the new amazing vocal artist out there. It's just about being open and bringing the sound from the deepest place that you can access within your being. It's not important what it sounds like. What's important is the presence that's laced into it. Okay? Now I'm going to tone a sound. That sound sounds like this. Nura. Nura. If I were saying it in an everyday basis in Aramaic, it would be Nuhra. There's an H in the middle of the letter He. But we're just going to make the sound Nura. I'll explain what it is after we tone it. I think I've toned it in this room several times before. So I'm going to make this sound once. You don't have to hit the pitch I make to this first one. This is how good you see if you can listen to directions. For the first one, just listen, okay? Just listen to my tone. I'm going to give you an example of what it means to tone, and then we'll do it together 3 times, okay? This is going to set the bass or the timbre for the next few minutes while I'm up here. Just be open right now. The sound is Nu-Ra. Just listen to the first one. Let's do that 3 times. One more, really let this one be wide open. Really let it ring out. Go far beyond the confines of New Jersey, radiate out into space, okay? One time, wide open. You can very consciously open your eyes. How do you feel right now?
Buzzed.
Open.
Buzz. Buzz. It's not legal here yet, is it? Yeah, well, sort of, kind of. It's been legal the whole time. I see it everywhere. Drive in California, and there's just fields. Mendocino County, you can drive for 2 miles and still see the same cannabis field. It's pretty wild. I'm one of those oddballs that's never even smoked it once in my life, so plenty of contact highs, but if that's even possible. Now, the sound that we just made is Nu-Ra. The Ra sound is an ancient tone that we're pretty sure that it started in Aramaic. Is this a message? I'm going to take a safe one that's inside something else. Can that come off? No.
This one right there.
There's 3 on the table.
Oh, there we go. Well, I want one that I can have a little more contact with. There we go. Wow, look at that. Yeah, since I'm a big mouth, I'll hold it away. Maybe I should walk around with a lighter too. Maybe I should just use a lighter. This is actually, it's very significant because, yeah, people don't even use lighters in concerts anymore. They wave their cell phones. Put on the flashlight thing. It's interesting that the light was extinguishing. That was twice now. That word Nu-Ra, the Ra sound means a shining forth of heat and light. It's a word, it's a sound that definitely is in Aramaic and Hebrew, all the Semitic languages. It also made its way over into Coptic, Egyptian. Interesting thing about in Coptic, it was the word for sun as well. Ra, shining forth of light and heat. Now, I'm going to be talking about a paradigm, or I should say a continuum between masculine and feminine a bit today. And I'm going to talk about inside, outside, light and dark, just for a few minutes. We'll do more this afternoon. Now, the Nu sound, or the sound that we hear of Nu in Nu-Ra, Nu is a sound that's very unique because Nu in Aramaic means something that is a reflection, which is where the N comes from, And the U sound means, it's like ing in English, action, like a reflecting and expanding Ra, light. Now, Nuhra is the word for moonlight. Okay, what's unique about moonlight versus sunlight? It's a reflection of sunlight. Masculine, when I'm speaking of masculine, I'm talking about this candle flame here. What's interesting about a candle flame is a candle flame does not exist. In the words of Alan Watts, it would be more accurate to call it a flaming. There's no such thing as a candle flame. There's only a process that we know as flaming. And we identify it as a static, stagnant thing that we're viewing, yet it as an entity does not exist. It's a process. It's not a thing. Very unique. Now, if I'm looking directly at this candle flame here, that would be considered a masculine light. It's obvious. It's something that's right here in front of me. Now, the reflection on my hand would be considered a feminine light. It's a reflection. It's not quite as strong. That is how Nuhra is the word for moonlight, because it's not a direct light, it's a reflection. Light in the morning, at the dawn, before the sun comes over the horizon, it would be considered a feminine light. When it moves above the horizon, it's considered a masculine light. Now, masculine and feminine, they're not two different things. They're actually two qualities of one continuum, like a battery. If you've got positive and negative, who could walk up and show me the place in the center of the battery where it changes from positive to negative? Does that exist? There is no such place, because they're not two different things. They only exist as a continuum. If you take one away, everything's nullified. Sort of like if I'm talking about inside, what's the sense of talking about inside if I'm not also instantaneously implying that there's an outside? One of the problems that we've done is we've taken a lot of internal concepts and we've taken things that are inner, and when I say internal, I think you know that I mean. I'm not talking about in my body. I'm meaning non-manifest, feminine, something that's directly experiential rather than something that's just a concept in my head or some kind of what I would call physical experience. And I want to begin with a quote from Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell's a guy who was saying things around the time I was born that are just now being comprehended, I think, by a lot of people. One thing that Joseph said in 1973, the year after my birth, he said, a perfectly good definition of mythology is other people's religion. And an equally good definition of the word religion is misunderstood mythology. What's interesting is the word religion comes from the Latin root religio, which means to reveal the ligaments, or to reveal how everything is threaded together. Does that sound like modern religion? No, I don't think so. Not at all. We're at this time of year when we've got this Christmas story. We have a very, what you could call an exoteric story that we look at. Star in the East, Three Kings, Christmas, all of these different qualities. And we're looking at something outside, not realizing that there's an inner archetype that this was birthed from. And the archetype, or the inner sense, the innocence, is not separate from the exo. What we would call something internal or feminine is esoteric. Eso means within or inside, or projected from within. Exoteric would be the story, the Jesus story. Now let's look at Jesus. A guy who, first century, Palestine, Israel, miraculous wonders accompanied his birth. Mother was divine. Angels told his mother that he would be divine. He was gifted in religious theology as a child. He had a public ministry where he traveled about with disciples, healed the sick, raised the dead, walked on water, turned water into wine, was brought up by charges with the Romans, was crucified, and his followers saw him alive afterward, right? So that's Jesus, right? No, that's Apollonius of Tyana. First century, we've got lots of physical, historical evidence about Apollonius, along with the other 36 or so solar messiahs that lived in the Galilee and Judea in the first century of the Common Era. Let's look at another guy. Go back to 3000 BC. Egypt, a guy named Horus, who was actually known as Ra. Horus was the son of the Virgin Mother. Horus, this is in Egypt, okay? Horus was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary. 3 kings followed a star in the east to locate that newborn Savior. He was gifted in religious theology as a child and began teaching in the temple at the age of, anybody want to guess? 12. At the age of 30, Horus was baptized by Anup, which began his public ministry. He healed the sick, raised the dead, walked on water, turned water into wine. Traveled about with how many disciples? 12. I'm sure this is all pure coincidence. Was crucified, dead for 3 days, and on the 3rd day was resurrected. Horus was known as the way and the truth and the life, the light of God, the only begotten Son of God, the Lamb, the light of the world, amongst other things. Interesting. Horus, look it up. Don't believe me, study it. I know it hasn't been encouraged to actually look it up. But now that the internet exists and everything on the internet is true, it's really easy to find it. So, let's look a little deeper though. This is also from Joseph Campbell. He says, in the Christian tradition, there's a very decisive problem in distinguishing between the sense of the term Christ and the sense of the term Jesus. Jesus is a reference to a historical character. Christ is a reference to an eternal principle, the only begotten Son of God, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, which is before and after all the ages and is not historical. Again, he says Christ is a term that is a reference to an eternal principle. Jesus is a reference to a character or a person. Now, the difference between those two, you could say that Christ is feminine and you could say that Jesus is masculine. Christ was not the family name. There wasn't Jesus Christ and Daddy Christ and Sister Christ. Okay? Also, incidentally, when I see people get offended by Xmas, they think that it's rude. What they're actually telling me is they don't know anything about their religion. They don't know anything about how to spell it in its original Greek. The word Christ was spelled with what in English we would call an X. And yet Jesus was symbolized simply by an X. Now what is the X? Well, we're coming up on the 21st. What happens on the 21st? Solstice. How many winter solstices are there?
One a year.
One. Wrong. There's 2. This is, I say that as a revelation to how sort of disconnected we've made ourselves in the United States of America. There's 2. There's one in the northern hemisphere, December 21st, one in the southern hemisphere, June 21st. Interesting. Now, our winter solstice is their summer solstice. Interesting. So, what happens on the 21st? On December 21st, every single year, the Son, what was known as the only begotten Son, S-U-N, of God, the giver of light, the light of the world, drops down from the perception of earth into the region of what's called the southern crux, or cross. If we look at it from the perception of earth, it looks like an X, slightly tilted to one side, constellation. The Son, the only begotten Son, drops on that cross on December 21st every single year from our perception. Now, what's even more intriguing about that is that right now you can only see the Southern Cross from right in the center of the Caribbean, basically also below the equator. In the time from about 3500 BC till about 500, what we would call AD or Common Era, the crux was only seen from southern Greece, northern Africa, Israel, and what we would call Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, that area there was viewable from there. But what happens is the Sun dies on that cross. It stays there for 3 days. Late on December 24th, the 3 kings of Orion's belt line up directly in a straight line with Sirius, the star in the east, and point directly at the only begotten Son, which is reborn on the morning of December 25th by moving 1 degree north. reborn after 3 days dead on the cross. Sirius is an interesting little star. Brightest star in the sky here from the perception of Earth. One thing they didn't know at the time was that Sirius is actually a binary star system. There's Sirius A and Sirius B. And it's the combination of the two that makes Sirius so bright, the star in the east. Sirius would show up actually midsummer, and what they believed was that when Sirius would show up, all of a sudden it would get too hot, all the plants would start wilting, the men would get lazy, and the women would get frisky, let's just say that. And they called that being starstruck. Don't believe me, look it up. Those days in the summer were called the dog days of the summer, because Sirius was known as the dog star. Interesting. A lot of things here that we're so completely disconnected from. Now, Christmas. Why is Christmas on December 25th? Just because of that? No, because it was Jesus' birthday, right? Actually, it says that the shepherds are tending their flocks by night. That doesn't happen in the winter. That actually would be in the spring or parts of the summer and the fall. What's even more intriguing than that was that during the solstice, when children were conceived, those children that were conceived, that were conceived during the time of sowing the fields, they would be born during the solstice when the people had more time to take care of them. And those children were called sons and daughters of God. Now, one of the things that I see a lot out there is a lot of this talk about marriage equality. And this bizarre, strange, venom-filled hate for everyone in this country to be able to actually be allowed to be who they are and to love whoever it is that they feel that they love. Somehow that's been made bad, and there's some sort of shame thing wrapped into that. What's interesting is Yeshua said that in which you judge another, you are guilty of practicing. Which means that the louder that I see a tele-evangelist screaming his brains out on a Sunday morning with homophobic slurs, what he's actually telling me is that, because it's all smoke and mirrors, because the inside is the outside. If he didn't have it, he wouldn't have to judge it in another. Because the reason we judge it in the other and have the rub with it is because it's within us and we don't want it rising, whether we're conscious of that or not. It's the arising of the inner residue. It's the arising of that sort of smaller self that's within that causes our irritability because we don't want to own it. There's a huge lesson right now in Bill Cosby. It's real easy to point at Bill Cosby and say he's this and he's that, and yeah, maybe there's something there. But just imagine the healing if, let's just say, just as an example, if he were able to come forward and own at least part of it, and literally truly own it, and put his heart out there on the line, could be looking at a potential healer there. Possibly. Will that happen? I don't know. Because what has to happen first is you've got to die on the cross. Now let me explain the cross a little more. The cross is a symbol that, again, it's very ancient, Sumerian, Akkadian, Phoenician, way pre-Egyptian. It's so old that we don't know how old it is, okay? Now the cross was something very specific. The cross, the up and down of the cross, is the symbolic realization of our eternal natures, meaning that we have no beginning, we have no ending. We're already one with the whole, one with the one. And yet we have this cross point. The word excruciate or excruciating means to suffer at the cross point. It means from the crux, excruce, ex-crux. The word crux is the cross point. The other part of the cross is the part that's like this, which is our human selves, our smaller self with a small s. It's the mask that we wear. It's the mask or the veil that we wear. And at the cross point between already being, in the words of St. Francis of Assisi, what you are looking for is what is looking. It's that relationship between what we would call our light or eternal self that already is that light, and the darker and or shadow self that's its reflection. It's the difference between that shadow self trying to become everything, trying to become more loving, trying to become more peaceful, when in truth we already are exactly that when we can drop the mask. We have to suffer at the cross point, and we continue to suffer until we can let that go. It's a very eternal symbol. It's been around for a long time now. One of the things with marriage equality is I see a lot of people leaning on, Gnosticism wasn't allowed in the Bible. Gospel of Mary Magdalene? No. Gospel of Philip? No. Paraphrase of Shem? Secret Book of John? No. Push it all off the table, not allowed in. We didn't want to look at it. Gospel of Thomas? No way. Anything that talked about experiential, something that you can directly experience without some sort of meddling from some outside person or entity, was not allowed in. Although they're still in there because they didn't understand what the heck they were looking at anyway. But the issue of not allowing Gnosticism in is you pull in the storyline, what would be the word peshat in Hebrew, the top level literal storyline, and then you don't realize the underlying message. Such as when you see a statement like, what God hath brought together, let no man put asunder. It has nothing to do with two people getting married. Nothing. It's a very, very, very common Gnostic idiom. And what it means is the inside and the outside, the light and the dark, the positive and the negative, the masculine and the feminine, life and death, before and after, past, future, etc., are part of one singular continuum. And it doesn't actually say brought together, it actually says created together, because the inside and the outside are not separate. And if you focus excessively on the outside too long, then the inside, you basically turn your back on it and it begins to negate itself. Kind of like misogyny. It's why God's called he. It's why in ultra-conservative Islam they make women cover up so men don't have to feel what's already inside of them. Cover the catalyst. Just let the eyes show so that I don't actually have to process what's in my heart. Blame it on the catalyst. That's what's happening with the homophobia today. Blame it on the catalyst. When the only reason the catalyst is arousing you is because there's something to arouse. Whether you're for it or against it, it's the same energy. Now, this relationship here, there was something that is that what we call, in Gnosticism, it was called the bridal chamber. It's the place of balance between light and dark, positive, negative, masculine, feminine, the inside and the outside. And that bridal chamber was represented by the term Christos, which means channel of divinity. It's the relationship, the balanced relationship point between things that look like they're somehow inside and outside. And we've taken an esoteric Gnostic archetype of a story and placed it outside, and then basically forgot that the outside was simply the reflection of the inside. And what I'm saying is that it's really time to take a few steps back and let the Jesus story grow up, which means actually look at what we do and don't know about the man, which is much more troubling and puzzling than you can imagine if you hadn't done the study. I'm at a point now where I can see that I'm basically telling places, I'm not here for you, I'm here for your children and your grandchildren. No jokes in that. Maybe there is. Because I'm starting to realize, maybe not in this room, but in a lot of rooms, when Moses and the Israelites wandered through the desert, what had to happen before they could enter into the promised land of milk and honey? What had to happen?
Get the 10 Commandments.
The older generation had to die. That word generation in Hebrew means root cause. I'm clear now that the Christianity, regardless of Christianity as a religion we screwed the whole thing up, forget it. But the spirituality and or religious frameworks of the world in 4 decades are going to have no resemblance to what we have right now. None. Just like what we have today has very little resemblance to what was there 40 years ago. Most people don't realize that, as an example, evangelical, United States, charismania, New International Version of the Bible, Christianity is only about 3 or 4 decades old. It didn't exist before that. All of these lingo phrases, they didn't exist before World War II, a lot of it. But what the thing is, when you repeat the same pattern over and over and over and over and over again, it starts to feel comfortable until somebody comes as a catalyst to shake that. And then all of a sudden you feel threatened. So what I'm saying is, leave you with a thought here. We're going to really get really deep into this afternoon with a bit more about the solstice, the inner sense of it, a lot of toning, working with crystal bowl, buffalo hoop drum, working with sound and tonality. It's going to be candlelit and lit by white lights in here, and we're going to be able to be in a very present space, very conscious space, internalizing it. As I said, the inner sense or the innocence. And to realize that when you do view something that appears to be outside, to be able to realize that what's outside is inside. In the Gospel of Thomas, one of the disciples asked Yeshua, Thomas was not allowed in the Bible. One of the disciples asked Yeshua, can you tell us how our end will come? And Yeshua's response was, have you found the beginning, that now you're looking for the end? And he said, blessed are the ones who take their place in the beginning, for they will know the end or the leading edge, and they will not taste death. It's the separation that's going to kill us. And us, as a small self, has to die. And we're going to keep dying as physical humans until we can realize that death is not what's real. Life is what's real. And when you look in the mirror, what you view in the mirror is not separate from that which observes it. And yet what you see in the mirror is not what's real. It's only a reflection. You getting what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What you're looking for is what is looking. And I want to close with a quote from Dr. Albert J. LaChance. This is from the book The Modern Christian Mystic, a very dear brother of mine. And this is about you. This is about you, every single person in this room. I know it because I've met a lot of you. True prophets can be irritating people. There you go. Like Bob Dylan and Martin Luther King Jr. in the 60s, they are always making us remember things we would rather forget. They force us to notice things that we would prefer to ignore. They are almost always a bit too much, a little over the top, and a little too intense. They speak outside the envelope, almost always demanding more of us than we want to demand of ourselves. And they call us deeper into truth, deeper than we often really want to go, perhaps even deeper than they themselves want to go. They cast light into the shadows of the scotosphere, the sphere of shadows. They seem to be able to read our real selves, to name our weaknesses, and demand that we acknowledge more and become more. We often feel scolded by them as though they were speaking for God or as God's anger incarnate. We want to tell them, this is as real as it gets for me. We want to tell them to tone it down, to come off the soapbox, to take a closer look at themselves. Occasionally we just want to scream, shut up! But yet we go on listening. This is about us, but it's also about our children and our grandchildren. And if we can't drop the BS of our religious indoctrination, BS means belief system. I don't know what you're thinking when I said BS. If we can't drop the BS and stop indoctrinating them and sticking ideas in their heads because we're so sure that these ideas are correct, we're going to kill them. We're going to kill the culture. We're going to kill the race. The reason we label them as autistic and all these great things we put on them is because their energy cannot be contained anymore. They're wide open. And if you're irritated by the wide openness of them, what you're telling me is that you are not willing to be open. And the reason I've been saying I'm here for the kids is because I'm seeing a lot of people who, as an example, people that I've even been around in the last week who are very, very, very good Christians in their minds, and that's great from their hearts. But yet when they hear any nuance of like the story behind the story, or the stories behind the stories, I should say, all of a sudden it's like I get the same expression from these people, which is like, and some of them will actually tell me, yeah, I've heard of the Council of Nicaea, I heard about the Egyptian stuff, winter solstice, but you know what, I've lived this way my entire life. I really don't want to change right now because it feels comfortable to me. So what I say to that is, okay, that's your choice, now get out of the way. Give it some time. We're not going to recognize it in a few decades. I'm clearly, and this isn't any kind of a statement of an ego thing, I'm clearly one of the ones that were sent here to do it, that were sent here to crack the shells and get us to wake up and actually get back to love. Real, actual, conscious, active, present love. And it doesn't fit within fences. It doesn't fit within intensive ideologies. It only happens through the open space of the heart. Religion, revealing the ligaments, how everything is threaded together. We forgot the religious experience because we were so obsessed about the things and the stuff to live up to. You don't need to live up to it. If you're open, it lives through you. And that's what Christ means. It actually means a channel of divinity in ancient Greek. So I invite you to this afternoon from 12:15 to 2:15. Is that right?
Yeah.
Ish. We're going to get together, we're going to bring the chairs into a circle, and we're going to have candles, and it's going to be some really amazing music, and going to do some toning, and we're going to get more of an inner sense of sort of the greater realization of what it is that I'm sharing with you. So I'm just saying, or beckoning you to just simply be open. When you feel hooked, breathe. If you're fighting against something, there's nothing outside to fight against. You're only fighting against yourself. And if you're offended by someone's belief, what you're telling me is that your belief must be inaccurate if you're not able to be equal with that person. So just be open.